Good morning. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts does not have the death penalty, which means when you're charged with first-degree murder, the punishment for that, if convicted, is mandatory life in prison with no possibility of parole. Lindsay Clancy has been charged 3 times for first-degree murder. Now, I'm not sure if they would give her like 3 life sentences, but bottom line is if she is found guilty of killing her kids and she is found responsible, criminally responsible for killing her kids, she's going to prison for the rest of her life. Okay? That is the level of seriousness of this case. She has submitted a non-guilty plea, which will then pave the way for Kevin Reddington to do an insanity defense. So basically trying to convince the jury that she's not criminally responsible for the actions that she committed. In all felony cases, less than 1% of the defendants plead insanity, right? It's a very uncommonly used plea, right? And it's not always successful. In fact, the insanity defense only succeeds in about 20 to 26% of cases. So roughly 3/4 of them are still found guilty. Even though Kevin Reddington has repeatedly said that his client was under some sort of psychosis when she killed her kids, but the jury will have to be convinced that she was not in her right mind and that she should not be held criminally responsible for her actions. This is just a general Google search, but the reason that the insanity plea is very rarely used is because it does have such a high legal standard, right? It requires clear and convincing medical and psychological proof. There are a lot of people who try to claim insanity and they're denied by the judge because they don't have any clear and convincing medical and psychological proof. For those just have been asking about what happens if she's found not criminally responsible. A successful verdict does not mean freedom, right? It usually results in immediate and indeterminate commitment to a secure state psychiatric hospital. Patients stay hospitalized until medical boards prove they no longer pose a danger to society, which can exceed a standard prison sentence. I've mentioned this before. Andrea Yates is still confined, and it's been 25 years. Now, she is at the point where each year she comes up for a review, almost like a parole board, like in easiest terms to understand, but it's a team of psychiatrists and people who evaluate her and then determine if she is capable of being in society without causing harm to herself or others. She denies those hearings every year because she feels she is where she needs to be. And in case you didn't catch this in one of my very first videos, like this was like video 7 or 8, I think I did. According to the National Institute of Health's National Library of Medicine, postpartum depression affects approximately 1 in 7 women. So it's about 10 to 15% of new mothers. Some specific demographic groups, such as Black and Latino women, see higher rates. This impacts 460,000 new mothers every year. Postpartum psychosis affects about 2 out of every 1,000 women after childbirth. And it escalates rapidly, and it can place the life of the mother and infant in danger due to its symptoms. Symptoms include seeing and hearing things that aren't real, false beliefs, extreme mood swings, and confusion. A personal family history of bipolar disorder greatly increases the risk, though it can happen in women who have no history of mental health whatsoever. So it can be what is determined to be a perfectly healthy woman with no mental health issues could suddenly get postpartum psychosis. Postpartum psychosis may also be the first presentation of bipolar disorder. I think that's important to keep in mind because the defense is about to start their presentation. And I think the conversation about postpartum psychosis and bipolar and how that is impacted by all of the different medications and the inability of these doctors to connect all of these dots. Kevin Reddington is going to convince this jury that Lindsay Clancy was in psychosis when she killed her children. Less than 1% of felony cases are tried this way. So Kevin Reddington, I promise you, has spent the last 3 years preparing to convince a jury that his client is not criminally responsible for killing her children. He knows she is found criminally responsible for the murders of her children. She will go to prison for the rest of her life. So he is going to work feverishly to convince this jury that she did not know what she was doing at the moment she killed her kids. If you're expecting any other outcome, I'm sorry. I think you're going to be sorely disappointed.